session after I told them I was going to record it. Oops. So the idea with these meetings is, and one of the things, you'll get notes after these meetings. Those notes will include things like the recording to the session in case you're not there. Those will include like the follow-up action items that we need to have. And then a review of what was discussed during the meeting. So I'd like to make these kind of a consistent format moving forward for all of us so that we can all go back and see, okay, what was discussed at every meeting and what needs to be done or what has been done type of thing. So for today, my big goal and focus for today is to look at the content that we've not created because it isn't created, but look at the ideas for the content. And when I talk about this content or this curriculum, I want you to think about a toolbox, and like there's a compartment in a toolbox, right? There's little sections of a toolbox. So we want to make sure that what we have is a chunk of a category that might contain several different tools that could be used, for example, to improve your growth in academics, right? Or to show that you're improving in your growth in academics. So that's what I want you to think about when we're looking at this. The other thing is some of this stuff might already be created, right? So some of this might already be, in fact, created. Might already have some of this stuff. Some of it we might not. Some of it we may have in like a PowerPoint, but as we start talking about this, we think we need more than just a PowerPoint. We might need a video to go with it. We might need a handout. It might be something that's on Canva that we put on the website. So there could be the same content, right? The same words, as I'm stealing your flavor there, CJ. The words might be the same, but the format and how it's disseminated look different and sound different, right? So, so some of the follow-up tests from today is I want to make sure the words, what we say we want to include in this, are what we all feel is appropriate and that we feel we can manage that, right? What does it look like? And then from there, what we'll do is we'll have a couple of other meetings before we actually leave for break, where we really take a look at, okay, what do we have already that we can use? What do we have already that we need to tweak, right? We need a different format or something like that. And what do we need to really develop? And then we'll start putting names to see who's going to be responsible for doing that. Make sense? All right, so let me go ahead. So this is our little area here. I'll keep the follow-up test blank for now. So these are some of the things that we talked about could be included in a grow. If we're talking about growing academically or showing you're growing academically, and things that we need to include when we're talking about growing with a connection to a school. So the top three I really think are those academics, right? Where we really are utilizing different areas, and they are assessments, but that's all part of showing your growth academically, right? So I feel like we need to have something that talks about what is state testing, why is it important you go to state testing, right? I feel like it's important for them to understand this isn't something just because it's on a computer that you're going to be sitting in your lovely home completing. You do need to expect it. You do need to plan for it. We should have testing dates. I'm going to follow up on that, but I believe we have testing dates for spring. And also maybe, you know, what they need to think about, you know, during testing. How can they help their child succeed to show they're growing academically? Does that make sense? I'm sure. I'd like to, I was going to say, I think a lot of this stuff, we may already have bits and pieces of this that we just need to kind of take and tweak a little bit. I will agree. I'm sure I have stuff when I was doing testing that I could pull something out of the rabbit's hat too. So I think that we all have those types of things. You know, some of this might be things we add in later because we may have, for state testing, the ability for students to go in and go to a BL hub, a blended learning hub, and practice testing, right? I don't know if that schedule is going to be available, but that certainly could be something that is put onto a blended learning calendar, right? So that all could be a piece of what we need to make sure everyone understands is what it's available. District testing is the other piece of showing academic growth. So the new tests for K-12, our whole, both Insight and all of AZBA is the NWEA. That's a test that's going to be given the beginning, middle, and end of year. You also have, for K-5, you're going to have Galileo potentially, DIBELS, USA Test Prep, whatever else is involved with a district standpoint. So those would be our district tests that all students need to complete, right? And again, articulating why they're important and what they should expect in those. Some of that information we're going to probably have to get information, we're probably going to have to dig up some resources on that, right? Department specific. So each department would have the ability, and when I say department, I'm talking grade level, possibly specifically. So we probably would have, okay, what are your teacher expectations? What are your monthly expectations your teacher had? It could be a work sample. It could be a teacher graded assignment. What are those yearly expectations? So talking about some of those extra things that the teachers want their students to utilize so they can show academic growth. Stride, Padlet, RazKids, that extra math, all that kind of thing comes into the department-specific things. Can anybody else think of anything academically from a growth standpoint that our families should need to know about? I agree, Shoshana. Oh yeah, visuals for the new test. We'll figure it out. I'm sure we can find some.
Extra Math, third grade uses some program called Extra Math. And I know some of the teachers use Spelling City.
That's right. I forgot about that one.
And I think kindergarten uses Vocabulary Train or Alphabet Train or something.
So one of the things that we probably should do sooner rather than later, we can look at this at another meeting, is we probably need to understand what that looks like for each of the schools. Does that make sense? So we probably need to understand, what does K-5 use or going to be using? What does middle school use or going to be using? High school Insight, we probably need to have that information. So before we leave here, maybe the district and the state, I think, are easy. We know what we're doing. It comes down to that department and grade level that I think we need to do a little digging for.
I agree. Because the kids that are in small groups, those are intensive interventions.
Yeah.
And in those sessions, at least once a week, the teachers in those small group interventions also, they're constantly assessing the kids. Yeah. And so that's the other thing about pushing engagement is, I know it's a lot of class time scheduled on your kiddo's schedule, but they absolutely need to be there. Not only to get that intensive instruction, but that's also part of the constant assessments.
And that's not in here, but you're right, CJ. We probably need to look, well, no, it's even more than that, because we have the specifics, right? But I don't have anything in here about the importance of going to live class sessions. That should probably be a way to grow, right? If you want to grow, absolutely, you go to live class sessions. Help sessions. I mean, I know we're talking about other categories, but I don't think it doesn't hurt to reiterate it here.
Well, this goes back to what I said in that other meeting about, the first pieces we're putting together are really schooling. That's everybody.
Yeah.
This is the engagement piece of it. The grow part is the engagement.
Yep. So some of the other things we can put up here for state and district is how to prepare your child for testing, right? I mean, it could be as simple as go to bed early, have a good breakfast, right? I mean,
that's been something I've been wanting to put up on the website. And again, it goes back to, we're the experts on education. Families are the experts on their kids. So, we can give them, again, that kind of checklist of things. Did they have a good snack? Did they get enough sleep? And trust that families know what's going to work best for them. If we, in Shauna's saying stretch breaks. So, and saying, here's some things you can try. We as educators find any of these things to work, and you as the expert on your kiddo will know what will work best.
Perfect. I bet there's TED Talks on some of that. I bet there's some kind of TED Talks that have been created on testing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to put TED Talks up here because that might be something that somebody likes to research, TED Talks, and see if they can find anything. I bet there is something up there.
When I was in social
Dance
work,
breaks,
I used to
courses. Yeah.
when I was in social work, I used to listen to education TED Talks between sessions, and I used to integrate those into my community classes. Absolutely.
What was that thing? We had at one point, what was that called that somebody was using? It was a website that all of a sudden you could set a timer and it would time you and you have to get up and do something.
Class Dojo?
No, there's another one, and it does like the exercises and the wiggles and the
what was
random.
It called?
Noodleverse? No, not Noodleverse.
I think you're getting close though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember, but there is one because I've used it in my classes when I taught 4th grade.
I used to use it in my
Sounds
classes
awesome.
too.
I
It's
would
a
do
billion
that.
years ago.
We'll have to look at that. Yeah, that's great things to add in there because that also helps families. Okay, you're ready, you're set. Part of growing is to get your kid to sit sometimes, right? But to give them the power, and that's where our flexibility in our schooling comes in, right? Jimmy doesn't have to sit for 4 hours and 5 hours at a time. Jimmy can do what Jimmy can do, but Jimmy just needs to go squiggle and wiggle and do that. But Jimmy's got to get back to school. He can't just take the rest of the day off, right? So that helps with some of that, that type of thing too. Okay, cool. So I'm going to make a big category here. This is academic growth. Academic. And then these all become sub stuff of academic. Do you guys agree with that? I don't know why my indentation's so large, but anything else that we could think of from an academic standpoint that our families would be very beneficial for them to know? Holy crap. And again, this is something that we can look at again. This is something that once we get this down in paper, you guys might want to take another peek at it and see what else strikes your fancy. Go Noodle, that's exactly what it is. Go Noodle. You were right. That was fun, actually. That was kind of cute. The learning station, yeah. And again, some of this stuff is going to be more appropriate for different grade levels, right? But I still think the idea, the concept is, maybe when we talk about your kids need breaks too, they shouldn't be on the computer 6 hours a day. I mean, I heard that from some families. My kid spends 8 hours on a computer. I don't want to be on a computer 8 hours. Why are you making your 8-year-old child be on a computer for 8 hours? So that also helps them understand and gives that family some kind of permission to control that to a certain extent, right? And most of those families were those families that were so far behind they had to work 8 hours a day. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. Okay.
I think that some of those families don't know how to manage
their
time, right?
Sorry.
Parent their children. So they'll say, well, we've been on for 8 hours. No, you haven't, because you went on for 20 minutes. You took a 40-minute break. You came back on for 20 minutes. You took a 40-hour break. And yeah, it's going to take you 8 damn hours to do your stuff. You're not doing it.
You spread it out over the course of a 12-hour day.
Right.
That's why it took 8 hours.
And it's not 8 hours. It's be realistic. I'm sorry. I'm at the end of the year and I'm frustrated.
Have a Snickers.
Who do I look like right now?
I'm sorry. I had a bit of a crisis, apparently, that I wasn't sure what the crisis was, but I have to be spoken to for my child, so I'm hoping everything is okay.
You were only gone for like 12 seconds. I wish I could handle a crisis in
Well,
12
no,
seconds.
it's not really handled. I said, I'm in a video conference. You're going to have to wait. So.
Crisis diverted.
Oh, are appendages on? What's going on? So, okay. So sorry. Okay. So yes, I don't know. I honestly, true transparency, I have no idea who was just talking or what was just said because my child was completely occupying my thoughts. Okay. Thank you, Heather.
You missed a Snickers moment.
Dang it.
And it was a good one.
Dang it. All right. So I think that's something that I feel like we've got a pretty good handle on that, but I think if there's anything else we think from an academic standpoint to help our students grow academically, that would go into that category of what we could think about. These down here, I feel like are all in growing in our connections to school. So growing in our
That was like school community.
Yeah. School community, yeah. Yeah, it's almost like that. So again, I feel like this is going to be stuff that we need to gather information on to be able to produce these, right?
Is it lame to put Facebook groups on there? I mean, I know for some of like our rural families, the Facebook groups are like the closest they're going to get to a school community.
No, I don't think it's lame.
It's in there, right?
Yeah, Connected Deeper. I have Facebook groups there. Yeah, I think. Plus, I feel like even like the blended learning hubs utilize that for their schedules. I could be wrong, but I feel like they do.
They create events on Facebook and then put them on their hub page. So like each site has its own page and then they create events for that site on that Facebook page.
So we have transition out of high school. Should we have some kind of transition into high school?
That would be good. It would go hand in hand with that new
graduation
advisor that they're bringing into high school.
The what?
The transition advisor. I don't know what they're calling them.
I don't know.
Where they will work with freshmen the first semester, and then the second semester they'll work with the 8th graders that are going to be going into high school that next semester. So it's sort of
needed.
It's so needed. It's super smart of them finally to do something like that.
So yeah, it's like, what does it mean to get a high school diploma, or what do I need to graduate? I don't know. Do we have that? Did we put that in the other one?
We talked about what credits were. We didn't really talk about.
We talked about grad plans.
Yeah, I mean, really didn't get into that real detail, but I think that was a little bit on purpose, strategic, because I think every plan is so very different. It maybe needs to come from their person versus us.
Yeah, I think for this, it just means you got to pass your classes.
Yeah, is there like a high overview version we can give them? Like the basic is, so what is it, 22 credits? All high schoolers.
That the class will follow you if you don't pass it.
I think it's kind of like, you need 22 credits if you don't pass. It follows.
And you need to have, we have that chart that was in our student success plans that shows the actual credits required in each of the courses, right? I think what we really want to stress is you can't get into a 10th grade math class, which is geometry, until you pass your Algebra 1 class, right? So that might be something, if you haven't graduated Algebra 1, you're already behind. You're already a year behind in your math. So I feel like is that a transition out of high school or transition into high school, or is it in both places?
Maybe it's just a high school page in general.
That's a true thing. Maybe we just do high school and we include all of that in there.
Because that's sort of the grow in high school, and it's sort of a deeper look into what it means to be in high school.
Plans after high school. That's because I'd like to push that Tallo. I think it's called Tallo, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's called Tallo, which lets you do like career planning and that type of thing. What do I need to graduate? What are plans after high school? Do you think we should have what's your plan B if you don't? If you're behind in credits? Just kidding. I'm only kidding. Kind of. I'm kidding.
I was going to say, I feel like
I was going to
a
say
little bit.
there's some validity there.
yeah,
Of the whole,
but-
you know, I just kind of feel like hail at all frequencies if you're failing. You know what I mean? There's something like they
or do
need
you
to know
have a backup plan? Yeah,
when they're in
like
trouble
it.
and how to reach out.
You could always make it nice, ask them
Correct.
semi-nice. You know, it's like, well, what's the plan? You know, and
Yeah.
having them develop a plan, or talking about developing a plan, and within that developing of a plan, there obviously should be a backup plan, and potentially a backup to the backup.
Well, and I think it's good, like just even that question, even if that's all it was at the bottom is a question, what's your backup
What's your
plan? Because I
backup
think
plan?
instantly you're like, I might need a backup plan. I might not graduate because I think they just assume if they go to high school, they're going to graduate. It's going to be 4 years. It's going to be super easy. Everything will fall into place. And it doesn't work like that.
And I think it's because right up until 8th grade, literally 8th grade, they could fail a class and still promote.
Yes.
And it's just a shock to get to high school and find out if you, what I was Liz said earlier, if you fail, that class is going to follow you. You don't get to just fail and still graduate. And I think that's a huge cultural and paradigm shift for our kids. Huge.
I almost feel like up here in departments, I mean, we can specify that out at high school, but I feel like for even in the department specific for K-8, I almost want to have what's your backup plan if you're not growing academically. You need to find a backup plan. If you're not growing academically in the school, you will be put on academic probation. We only want our students to grow academically. If you're not growing academically, you need to have plan B. Is that the bad thing to do there? Do you guys?
But what is a backup plan for a K-8er?
They go to a different school.
They're never going to see that as a backup plan though.
Mm.
It's like an alternative.
Can we just say plan B? Plan A, this is plan A. What if plan A doesn't work? Okay, I'm kidding.
I think in our minds, yes, but I think in a parent's mind, they're okay if their kid fails half their classes or all their classes. They truly are okay
They're
with
so
it
totally okay with it.
because they're
They
going
don't-
to pass.
Some of them don't. Exactly,
I was going to say
they're
the same
promote.
thing, Daisha, because they
We-
know that their
They're gonna
child
pass.
is going to
So
go
I don't-
through anyway. They're like, whatever.
Yeah, where
Well,
high school,
we
there
need
has to be a plan B.
We need to play up here in academic. The whole thing, we expect our students to have 1 year academic growth. That's got to be a big piece of this section here. Because if they're not, I feel like we need to stress that. We expect our students to have 1 year academic growth.
You got accept.
Oh, I certainly do.
And because you spelled it correctly, it wasn't gonna alert you.
We expect our students, oh, that was interesting, to show 1 year academic growth.
It's so interesting. That's the what right there,
Mhm,
and everything else we're doing is the how.
mhm.
Well, and that statement alone goes at the very beginning of
It
get
does.
ready. Get
Yeah, it's
set,
got to go in
grow.
everything. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I want that
And-
to be at every one of these things. Should be the start of everything.
It all goes to the why for
Mm-hmm.
the families.
Liz, and this actually is probably kind of goes hand in hand to what Daisha just said. I'm not quite sure if this was discussed in those earlier sessions, but would it be beneficial to have something when we're creating all of this to really have a section where we can talk about evaluation, whether or not this is the right fit? Because I think that there are a lot of families that they need to evaluate that. Is this the right fit?
Yeah, and I almost
Like you
feel
don't
that's
just buy a
kind of,
pair
I
of
think,
jeans,
what I
you buy
was
some
trying
jeans, you need to try them on and make sure they fit.
I was almost going with that in here,
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Because if your kid isn't growing academically, you do need to evaluate if this is the right program for you.
And
That's
that's
exactly
the
what I was-
perfect question too.
That
because
is.
Yeah.
How do I
it's
know?
not a
if-
plan B. It's like,
Exactly.
do I think this is going to work for me? It's
So
it's
say
a whole
that
different
again?
approach.
Yeah,
It's
I
more-
really.
It's really, how do I know this is the right setting for my student or my child? How do
Yeah,
I
how
know?
about if we circle back into the growth, though? How do I know my child is growing academically, or is that too
No, I think that's valid. Because if that's the expectation, my student's going to grow academically. How do I know that they're growing academically? And it goes back to, are you checking progress? Are you checking grades? When the teachers tell you, warning, warning, are you answering your phone, email, or text?
So, Shoshana, you had something else. How do I know if my child is growing academically, and did you say, what are you going to do if they're not? How did you?
Is this the right fit?
Is this the right fit?
Which is different
Uh-huh.
than if my kid's growing, because I'm going to assume my kid's growing if they're going to class, if I think they are. But is this the right fit? It really puts, again, that active piece on the learning coach.
Does that one make sense or no?
The wording is a little awkward. We get it, but I think the average parent isn't going to.
Right.
I think
Okay.
make it a little more parent friendly, or
So
else
do you want to just say, is this the right fit? I don't want to put a question in their mind that this might not be the right fit, but maybe we do want that question.
But that's the same question as, do you have a plan B for high school?
Yeah.
I think the right fit is a very nice way to sort of put that out there for K-8, because there really is no, they're going to pass. So there is no real need for a plan B other than it's not the right fit. We need to go somewhere else. I like that. Is this setting the right fit, or is this school the right fit? Is this educational experience the right fit?
is the online public school the right fit for my child?
Right. It's really that educational experience piece that they need to evaluate for sure, outside of obviously making that academic growth, because there are going to be those times where the child they may be a bright child, but working online in this setting is not going to
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I think it allows them to, it kind of gives them permission almost to say, to sort of stop and reflect, like, maybe this isn't working. Maybe I need to go do something else and take them to another school.
And I feel like that kind of echoes what a lot of parents said in that meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Well, and those parents did look at that. They did evaluate that, and they came to the conclusion it wasn't the right setting for their child. Yeah. Now, some of that I think we could have made a difference in. Some of that I think was our fault personally, but I do think that is a valid, I really like that. And that's exactly what I was trying to, it was very well formed. Yeah, I really like that. Okay. So I feel like this goes up here into academics.
I agree.
Agreed? This is all just how you grow in your school community, right? Is there any other ways that you guys can feel that we could grow? I have nothing. Do I have blended learnings? Oh yeah, I do have blended learning love.
Is RISE, would RISE be academics?
Yeah, RISE and CTE may actually be both up here. Would you agree with that?
So now I know what RISE is, but at the same time, no, I don't. Can you, what exactly is RISE? What does that, I know we've discussed it, and during PD it was discussed with Brushra, but I still not absolutely sure what RISE even
It's basically a gifted program, so you have to test into the program. So if you have a gifted child, you take the intelligence test. I think it's the CogNet. I forget which test they do, but they take a test. And if they place in a certain percentage in different categories within that test, they will be placed into the RISE program. And it's basically a school within a school. So they still have the regular curriculum that they're completing, but in this curriculum, they take it and they expand it and dive deeper into the curriculum. And it's a lot of project-based learning. So they really do a lot of the project-based learning to really expand further on the curriculum that we already have in there.
And a lot of elementary schools, brick and mortars, middle school, high schools, they do that too. And it is just usually called the gifted program, but it is a different, it's more like that pull-out method where some kids go for resource, some kids go to gifted. So it's still sort of that same concept.
And CTE would be the, I feel like this probably is part of academics. I'd like a subcategory. I think you're right, Kimberly. I think it just is a piece that we talk about because it is a way academically you can grow within our school.
Now, a question regarding CTE program, because this is something, even when I have discussed this with people who potentially would be interested in CTE programming. Would it be beneficial when we're talking about that program and how you can grow with that program, like how it even would work in an online setting? Because I think that's something that would confuse a lot of people. Like, how do you do CTE completely online?
Yeah, and I got the whole presentation saved off somewhere. They sent it during re-reg. I mean, the CTE program, and it's only available to certain grade levels for entry because of the amount of time it takes to complete it and a high school diploma. So if you're not plugged in, I think by 10th grade, it's not even an option, because the programs take like anywhere between, 3 and 4 years. Like some of them, you'll need to do it as a freshman, or that program is closed off to you. So like it's a whole other.
And they do stuff that's not online. So part of that program is job experience and things like that. So they will be out getting, and I don't know how it works. I don't know what relationships they're building, but they will have a piece of that program that does require not everything to be done in an online fashion. So that's something we have to dig more information. We have to basically, I feel like what we need to do with both of those programs is we need to reach out to Jackie McGregor, who's in charge of the CTE program, Bushra, who's in charge of the RISE program, and say, hey, we're putting this together for families to talk about your program. Can you give us 5 to 10 bullet points of information that you want your families to understand, basic knowledge, just to tweak their interest? And then contact information. Who do you want them to contact for more information? Right?
And they may have that already.
I'm sure they
I mean, I would imagine they would have some sort of one-page flyer to
Correct.
get the family's attention. So we can just kind of get it together. Or we may want to make those 2 items, like you have the 2 bullet points, and maybe maybe having their own bigger page of information might be okay too, or more thorough.
Correct. Yeah. Kimberly, I love it. See, she's always thinking of different ways of showcasing this information. Fantastic. Anything else like for growing in your school community? You guys see anything that we're missing in that? I mean, there's a lot of different ways for an online school community for our students to feel a different connection, right?
Is there like a student-led, and I think we talked about it, but I don't know if it was this year. CJ, I think you would know this. Like a student, I don't want to say a student mentor, but a student-led leadership.
Yeah, we forgot student government on here.
But slightly different from government. Wouldn't there be like so a lot of times the teachers will have a student who comes in and presents the opening of
Daisha, they had for 9th graders. I know in high school, I remember, I believe last year they had something where, they had a mentor program in high school.
It was not well received.
Oh, okay.
They had many mentors, no mentees. So it's similar to what you had, CJ. You had the mentors that are willing to volunteer their time, but there's no mentee that gets supported. So
they have to
I have mentors down here still, because I do think that is just a valuable thing, but we've never really been able to get both pieces of the puzzle working together.
And maybe it's not a mentee mentor thing, because I don't think I would feel comfortable going and telling another peer, hey, I super suck, I need help. Not that they suck, but maybe if it's a leadership thing, like I could see some shy kids or quiet kids, if it was like a student leadership and it was the 4th grade ambassador maybe who got to, I don't know what they could do, but maybe some of those kids would be more connected if they felt like they had a title, and even if it means nothing.
That would be actually, as I'm thinking through, that would be really interesting for advisors to have within their homerooms.
I would want one, because then they can do a lot of the work too.
Yeah, you could have a student ambassador or a few student leaders within your homeroom or your classroom. That actually would be kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, they don't like to being offered.
Well, and I think if I'm feeling already bad, then I don't want to admit that to somebody else, because then I have to own that I actually feel bad and admit I'm bad. So I don't think I'd be quick to say, yeah, help me. But I might rise up to, meet a challenge of having that title.
Yeah.
Ambassador means nothing other than maybe you get to like read the story problem or, whatever it is. But students like titles just like adults do.
Yeah. That's why I'm Empress, just so you guys know. So kidding. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that we could, at least within our the K-5 advisor team, if it's only just that, that's fantastic. But it certainly would be something that we could encourage. And maybe this just becomes like, how would you do that for your homeroom as an advisor? Go ahead, Shoshana.
You probably, you can see me raise my hand. Okay.
I can.
That was awesome.
I don't know if this is something that we would be able to coordinate, but speaking of mentors, I know that in some of the schools near me, they have a program where high school students can mentor or not mentor, but tutor middle school students. So if there are specific courses, like maybe you have a high schooler who's great in math, that they can be a tutor for middle school students one day a week or whatever for math, things like that. Is that something that we potentially would be able to set up? I think that would be something that the younger kids potentially, well, I mean, I don't know, because we're also dealing with parents still, and I'll go back to my Snickers moment, that there could be some blockage happening because of the parents, but that potentially could be an idea instead of it being high school with high school and, well, I'm your mentor. Like I've had many a student, well, is there tutoring options? If we listed it as tutoring instead of mentoring, that might be something that they would be more willing to accept.
I think you 100% would have buy-in from K-5 parents who like to not have their hands in the pot, to send them to a tutoring like Friday session with their advisors. And maybe I had a high school kid in my classroom who was helping with math today, or, whatever.
Yeah, because especially since I believe, or at least for K-5, I know that there's certain outings that advisors and teachers have to have. That potentially could be one of those. That, okay, well, I'm going to utilize my outing at maybe one of the Blended Learning Center hubs on this particular day during a month or whatever, and then have a tutor or tutors come with me, and that could be something that you set up for any kids who want to utilize it.
Blended buddies? Go ahead.
I like that. I actually set something up for a Tier 4 kid this year at a Blended Learning Center with a kid at I asked the Blended Learning Center, I saw that they were close, and this kid was struggling in math, requested tutors, and just needed that face-to-face, and was able to work out with, I don't remember, it was Queen Creek or Kingman. It was one or the other, opposite ends of the world, I know, but I think it was Kingman, where one of their students was allowed to tutor them, supervised. It wasn't like they were alone, but it was at the Blended Learning Center, and they did provide tutoring services for that student. So I don't think that is, I feel like that's something that we could potentially coordinate at a blended learning hub, maybe. I mean, possible tutoring.
That can also be done in a Blackboard classroom with breakout rooms. And I kind of been asking for 3 years for this. The older kids are willing to help the younger kids, and we can just set up a class connect with breakout rooms so that it's like one-on-one.
And I don't know that it has to be super official, like a program. I think there's nothing that would stop you from finding maybe an advisor who has a student that they would, agree to come into your class on Friday when they don't have a class or something and work with students. It doesn't necessarily give that high school or anything, but maybe they could count it as volunteering on their
volunteer hours.
We could do.
So I don't think there's anything. Yeah.
You've got NJHS, you've got NHS. They need volunteer hours.
Student government.
Yeah. I feel like you could have that as a piece of that program potentially as part of their volunteer hours.
Aren't volunteer hours already required by the state for graduation? I know that was becoming a thing. I don't know if they ever signed it.
I hope not, because my kid has 0.
It's only
unless I lie. Right? I'm not opposed to that.
It's only certain schools
Okay.
that do that.
But you can get nice little service awards, right? Which maybe
Yes.
you can get when you graduate. You can get the ropes for service. You know what I mean? If they
Yeah.
meet certain criteria. But I feel like we could utilize service hours for older students. But I think it would have to be supervised. I don't know if you'd want them in. I don't know.
Well, the honor societies would make the most sense, whether it was NJS, HS, NHS.
Or even, like during a teacher's open office hours.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't see any reason why, if this senior girl or boy has the desire to help with math, come into my room, and if any of my kids come in, and I think it allows your kids to come in too, and sort of in a non-threatening, not that teachers or admitting that you need help is threatening, but it just sort of, it's almost fun. Come in for some extra help. And you're going to get those kids, again, connected and logging in, and maybe they have to, maybe the requirement is they have to bring their assignment from that week or they can only come in a certain thing, but you're getting that connection.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. So we're at about 15 minutes. So what I'd like to do, let's pull up calendars, because I'd like to see when we can schedule. I'd like to try to fit in 2 meetings before May 31st if possible. One, to kind of basically what the next step will be, to send this over to you guys, have you review this one more time and really identify stuff we've already got, right? Stuff we have that we might need to retool. We might need different medium. We might want an infographic. We might want to look at it differently. And not that we take away like a PowerPoint presentation, but maybe we want a PowerPoint presentation and this, right? So what other things do we need to create for content we already have? And then what do we need to create from scratch? What content do we need to really develop from scratch is kind of the idea. And then I'd like for you to also identify which pieces of this do you want to be involved in, right? What do you want to put your name on that you're going to be responsible for doing? I know immediately we need to get some of this information. I will be able to handle all the district timing, so the schedule for some of these assessments, but I think we're going to need some help with trying to figure out what each department is going to require for their students, right? So that's something that we probably need to just start thinking about. We can talk about who's going to be tasked with that next meeting, but we probably need to make sure that we understand what pieces we need to get before everyone goes on break, right? So let's look at schedules real quick, because if we squeeze in one more this week, would you guys have any time? Let's see, what's my Thursday?
Just not at 2:00.
I'm not going to do anything after 2:00 because my kiddo's graduating. And as I said to the first group, I actually need to shower. So just kidding. Actually, I'm not kidding.
On Thursday, the 23rd, we already have something in the morning.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 24th. What do your guys look like on the 24th?
Ava has her 5th grade graduation.
Yay!
I know, it's so cute.
So cute.
I don't know what the purpose, but okay. So I think that's in the morning at 8:30, I think.
So what do we think about I don't know, I don't want to take over your lunch, but could we do something like at 1:00 or something like that on Friday?
1:00 would be great.
Daisha, what's that like for you with your CAF days?
My kids are done today. My student or 5th grader graduated last night, and I agree. It's a weird graduation concept at 5th grade, but it's all good.
You're right, Shauna. Duh.
Well,
Friday morning.
1:00 sound okay?
1:00's beautiful for me.
Okay,
totally
so
free.
I will send an invite out. Ready, set, grow here. And for that meeting, what I'd like you to do is take a look at what we have and really define what we know, what we have, but we want to do something different with, or we want to improve on, what we don't have and what we need to get, type of thing. And then at that meeting, we'll try to define who's doing what We might, and that's why I'd like to create another meeting the week of the 28th. I can't, the high school graduation I'm going to on the 28th. So I could do something the afternoon of the 28th potentially, because I feel like I should be home by 1:30 or 2 o'clock on the 28th. Whoa, what happened? The 29th is AZBA High School. 29th is shot for me. Thursday the 30th, I could do something afternoon on the 30th. The 31st, I'm open all day. So what would the second meeting? Could you do something the 30th or the 31st, everybody?
30th is good.
Yep, I'm in.
You want to say 1 o'clock again?
Yeah, we don't have Bonnie or Wendy, right? I mean, I'm flexible.
Bonnie and
all
Wendy
day.
aren't in here. Yeah, that's what I was
so,
saying.
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, and then from there, on that meeting, if we feel like we need a couple other meetings this summer, we can go ahead and plan for those. That being said, if you're on summer vacation, as I said to the earlier groups, and CJ let me know she was gonna like sign in from Tahiti or something like that. I'm just kidding. But if you're on summer break, you do not, these meetings will be recorded. You do not have to attend them, all right? There just would be little checkpoints that we look at to try to make sure, just little accountability, where are we and stuff like that. I just want to make sure all of this, we have something done. I don't want to start working on this on July 17th. That's the whole point of it. I want this done and somewhere before the 17th so we can really come back on the 17th and understand how we're going to distribute it. What's it going to look like? Maybe we can give each other and practice stuff. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
And then that being said, the team drive, I don't think we said that to this group. Is that right?
Oh, no, we didn't.
So I'll create a team drive for this group and a team drive for the other two groups. And then you'll have access to edit and sort of manage and upload and all that in your team drive, but you'll have access to view in the other two team drives. That way you see what's going on, but you only have editing powers in your own team drive.
Can you guys see? My boy's got his graduation hat on.
Oh,
Sorry.
This one's your youngest, right?
My baby.
oh, that is big.
Okay, he's got to talk to me about something. Apparently, it's got nothing to do with the graduation hat and me and the tears in my eyes.
He must be on fire.
He is on fire. I'm thinking he must be. Anyhow, all right, everyone. I will send out this information to you, and I'll send out the invites to the other meetings. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.